New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has signed a law guaranteeing equal pay. The move came moments before the ticker tape parade for the women's national soccer team. United States women's soccer team captain Megan Rapinoe used the opportunity during a FIFA-organized press conference to point out how the men would still get paid more. Cuomo said, and I quote, "These are women's soccer players. They play the same game that the men's soccer players play. By the way, they play it better. They play it with better results. If there's any economic rationale, the men should get paid less than the women." A memorial for the victims of the deadly Boston Marathon blast has come up at one of the blast sites. 4 bronze spires of heights ranging from 17 to 21 feet were erected at the site of the pressure cooker blasts in April 2013. The spires will act as a light pole once completed. Memorials will eventually stand at both sites and will also honor 2 police officers who died after the attacks. Planning began 4 years ago for the $2 million memorial, and it has since undergone substantial redesign. The United States' newest migrant detention center is an old oilfield workers' campsite near Texas. The center will house the children once they leave the Border Patrol Agency. The new center apparently has an air-conditioned tent which serves as a dining hall and also trailers which double up as classrooms. As of now, around 225 children are being held in this new migrant detention center. US President Donald Trump will be ordering an investigation into France's planned tax on technology companies. The announcement would be made at around 5 p.m. local time in Washington and gives us US Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer up to a year to investigate the impact of France's digital tax plan on US tech companies. The French Parliament is expected to approve a new tax levying a 3% charge on revenue made by big companies in France. This would mean that any digital company with revenue of more than £750 million, of which at least £25 million is generated in France, would be subject to the tax. Human rights lawyer Mal Clooney has criticized US President Donald Trump for vilifying members of the media. Clooney was speaking at a conference for media freedom in London alongside British and Canadian foreign ministers. Clooney accused Trump of regularly mounting attacks on the news media and political opponents through Twitter. Recently, a court had ordered that Trump could not block those on Twitter who criticized him and his administration.
Would otherwise, even if we don't always.
We are seeing, according to Freedom House.
Take the investigation.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel appeared unsteady during an official welcoming ceremony for the visiting Prime Minister of Finland. This was the 3rd time when Angela Merkel was spotted shivering. There were 2 such incidents in June, and in both cases, Merkel recovered quickly as she started walking. After the first incident, Merkel said that she was fine after drinking water. She had addressed concerns about her health during the G20 summit in Japan. Merkel said that she understood that questions were being raised but insisted she was fine. China has developed from a backward agricultural country into the world's largest industrial manufacturing power. The report by the National Bureau of Statistics says that China's industry has successfully made a historic leap after growing from weak to strong. According to statistics, the added value of China's manufacturing sector overtook that of the United States for the first time in 2010. China has maintained its position since then. With increasing global competitiveness in industry, China has become the world's largest goods exporter. The Commonwealth Finance Ministers Summit is underway in London. The summit marks the 70th anniversary of the Commonwealth and is being chaired by UK's Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt. India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar is expected to have a very busy schedule with a bilateral with Hunt being expected only if time permits. On the agenda for the ministers is the future strategy of the Commonwealth as well as possible reforms in the Commonwealth Secretariat. The United Nations envoy to Syria, DETENTION, has met with Syrian Foreign Minister in Damascus. The envoy said after the meeting that they were a step closer to setting up a constitutional committee. This has been an important and long-awaited step in the Syrian peace process. On its part, Syria has said that the constitutional committee must be a purely Syrian affair. The UN envoy also called for peace in the Idlib province, a major flashpoint in the conflict. Workers from the Walmart's largest union in Chile walked off early from their jobs on Wednesday in demand for better salaries. This was after negotiations over a new labour contract broke down earlier this week. With automation increasingly replacing workers, the unionised workers demanded the company to boost their salaries by 4%. Walmart, in a statement, has said it has offered a quote-unquote robust contract addressing key points. However, it did not specify the offered pay raise figure. After a long-standing legal dispute, the French quadriplegic patient has been taken off life support. The patient has been on life support for the past decade and has divided public opinion. Hundreds of supporters assembled outside St. Sulpice Church in a vigil for the patient, who is expected to pass away in the coming days. While euthanasia is illegal in France, a 2016 law allows doctors to put patients into what is called a continuous deep sedation.
Nous aurions tant voulu te sauver de la barbarie. Après toi, Vincent.
The French government has announced that it would stop reimbursing patients for homeopathic treatment starting 2021. This is after a major national study concluded that the alternative medicine had no proven benefit. The funds are currently standing at 30% of the treatment cost and paid by French Social Security. The country's health minister, Agnès Buzyn, has said that this should be phased out to 15% in 2020 and 0 in 2021. Venezuelan authorities on Wednesday buried the remains of a Navy captain who had died in military custody last month. This was despite the opposition of family members who say he was tortured to death and demanded an independent autopsy. Rafael Acosta was detained on June 21st for alleged participation in a coup plot, but died following a week in custody of military intelligence agency DGCIM. Lawyers said that he showed signs of severe beating. President Nicolas Maduro's government, even though confirming the death, refused to comment on the torture accusations. Indonesia has announced that it would be sending dozens of containers of waste back to Western countries. The step has been taken after inspections showed that contents violated Indonesian laws on import of hazardous and toxic waste. The step has added to the growing backlash in Southeast Asia against being a dumping ground for the garbage that developed countries produce. Containers of garbage will be returned to the United States, Australia, France, Germany and Hong Kong. China has recently banned the import of plastic waste, resulting in more being sent to Southeast Asia. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky had a regional official expelled from a meeting which was being broadcast live on television. The step was taken because of a past criminal record. The incident took place when Zelensky was meeting officials from the Kiev region to discuss projects, including a new city hospital. Zelensky said Hodunov talked a lot but did nothing, then read from his phone that he said was his criminal record for robbery and violence. The official threatened legal action against Zelensky, telling a newspaper the 2002 case against him was wrong. Internet services have been restored in the Sudanese capital of Khartoum days after the ruling military agreed to share powers with protesters. The military council had blocked internet services after it had launched a violent crackdown on protesters on 3rd June. Khartoum court had ordered telecommunication companies working in Sudan to restore internet services. People in Sudan have begun posting footage of alleged abuse perpetrated by security forces after violence broke out. A Delta Airlines flight headed from Atlanta to Baltimore was forced to make an emergency landing in North Carolina. Nearly 150 passengers were on Delta flight 1425 when one of the aircraft's engines had a problem. A video recorded by a passenger shows how a metal nose cone was bouncing inside the engine as the aircraft was high in the air. Passengers said that they were more than an hour into the flight when the captain told them they were planning an emergency landing. The MD-88 aircraft landed safely at the Raleigh-Durham International Airport. Passengers were then booked in alternate flights to Baltimore. Heavy rainstorm lashed southern Croatia. The region also faced wind speed of over 90 kilometers per hour. Some of the tourist resorts in Croatian islands were entirely flooded overnight. Authorities in the Dalmatia region were forced to close highways in many parts of the coast. The step also caused traffic jams in tourist season. Harsh weather conditions hit New Orleans on Wednesday as severe thunderstorms and rains made their way into the region. Videos put up on social media showed closed down shops and cars stuck on the streets because of the flash floods in the region. The flooding occurred as a brewing tropical system gained strength over the Gulf of Mexico. The National Weather Service urged the residents to stay off roads and seek higher ground if needed. A mandatory evacuation was ordered in some parts later in the day. The British Parliament today marks 160 years since the first chime of its Big Ben. However, the familiar bongs will not ring out to celebrate the occasion as the famous clock tower is halfway through a major restoration project. The 96-metre-tall Elizabeth Tower remains enveloped in scaffolding as the 4 clock towers are relaced, ironwork repainted and the stonework cleaned and repaired. Beginning in 2017, the program is the most extensive conservation program ever on the tower and is due to be completed in 2021. Japan's Princess MAKO is on a trip to Peru. She interacted with students at a school where Japanese is taught and also painted a tree outside the school. The princess also spoke at the Japanese Peruvian Cultural Center in Lima. Also part of Princess MAKO's itinerary is a visit to Machu Picchu and an interaction with the Nikkei community. Her visit marks 120 years since the first Japanese migrants came to Peru. It is the end of an era. As far as the Volkswagen Beetle is concerned, the last ever modern Beetle was rolled out of the factory in Puebla, Mexico. The factory was the last remaining one producing both classic and modern Beetles, accompanied by confetti and traditional Mexican tunes. The last Beetle, a stone-washed blue color, was rolled out. The car, however, is not up for sale and has been designated for a museum, considering the rich legacy of the pint-sized car. 20 years after a World Cup victory, the 1999 United States women's national team was honored with a bronze statue outside the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. In 1999, the team had defeated China in the finals after a penalty shootout. It was Brandi Chastain who netted the team's fifth penalty kick and sent the whole country into ecstasy. And fittingly so, it was Chastain who unveiled the new statue. The statue pays tribute to the moment when Chastain pulled off her shirt after scoring the all-important goal.